Welcome to Intrig Knowledge. Today, we're unpacking a massive piece of legislation that's got everyone talking, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, passed by the House on May 22nd, 2025. It's being called a game changer for the American economy, promising tax cuts, job growth, and a stronger future. Will this bill deliver prosperity, or is it piling debt on our kids' future? Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. First, let's break down what this bill actually is. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is a budget reconciliation package pushed by President Donald Trump and House Republicans. It's not your typical annual budget. It's a sweeping reform tackling taxes, social programs, border security, and more. Here are the headliners. Tax cuts. It makes the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, preventing a $1,700 tax hike for the average family. It also eliminates taxes on tips and overtime, boosts the child tax credit to $2,500, and increases the standard deduction, $16,000 for individuals, $32,000 for joint filers. Seniors get a $450 tax break, and businesses see perks like 100% expensing for certain investments. Spending cuts. The bill slashes $1.6 trillion in mandatory spending, including historic reforms to Medicaid and SNAP, food stamps, with work requirements and tighter eligibility. It also cuts green energy subsidies and student loan programs. Border security. It pumps $150 billion into immigration enforcement, including $46.5 billion for a border wall and $14 billion for deportation operations. Other provisions. From removing taxes on gun silencers to banning state regulation of AI for a decade, it's packed with extras. The White House calls it a once-in-a-generation chance to fuel growth and cut waste, claiming it'll save families $13,300 in take-home pay and boost wages by $11,600. But the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, paints a different picture, estimating a $2.4 trillion deficit increase over a decade. So, who's right? Let's dig into the promises first. The bill's supporters, led by Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson, are selling it as a rocket booster for the economy. Here's what they're promising. Tax relief for all. By making the 2017 TCJA permanent, the bill prevents a 22% tax hike for the average taxpayer. A family of four could see an extra $1,300 annually, while policies like no taxes on tips or overtime could put up to $750 in workers' pockets. The child tax credit increase helps over 40 million families, and small businesses get a beefed-up 23% deduction, potentially creating 1 million jobs a year. Economic growth. The Council of Economic Advisors projects a 5.2% GDP boost over 4 years and 3.5% long-term growth. They argue lower taxes will spur investment, hiring, and consumer spending, leading to 7 million new jobs. The bill's champions say it'll make America's economy go gangbusters. White House claims the bill won't add to the deficit because economic growth and new tariff revenues, like a 10% global tariff, will generate $2.3 to $3.3 trillion over a decade. They argue the CBO's estimates are flawed, using a gimmick baseline that assumes the 2017 tax cuts expire. With dynamic scoring, factoring in growth, the deficit could even shrink by $2 trillion under optimistic scenarios. Supporters like the Job Creators Network and the National Federation of Independent Business are all in, calling it a lifeline for small businesses and a path to prosperity. They point to the 2017 TCJA's success, which they claim drove wages up and unemployment down. But is this too good to be true? Let's flip the coin and look at the reality. Now let's get real. The CBO, Penn Wharton budget model, and other nonpartisan analysts have crunched the numbers, and their findings raise red flags. Here's the reality check. Deficit explosion. The CBO estimates the bill will add $2.4 trillion to the deficit over 10 years, with tax cuts costing $3.7 trillion and spending cuts saving only $1.2 trillion. Including interest, the debt could climb by $3 trillion. If temporary provisions, like the no tax on tips policy, become permanent, the deficit could hit $5 trillion. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget pegs it as high as $5.3 trillion. Economic growth? Not so fast. While the bill might boost GDP by 0.5 to 0.8% over a decade, that's modest compared to the White House's rosy projections. The Penn Wharton model suggests lower-income households could lose out due to cuts in safety nets, and even dynamic scoring, which accounts for growth, shows a $3.2 trillion deficit increase. Economists argue the growth won't offset the revenue loss. Social costs. The bill's Medicaid reforms, including work requirements starting in 2029, could leave 10.9 million people uninsured by 2034. SNAP changes, like raising the work requirement age to 65, might cut food aid for 2.7 million households, slashing their grocery budgets by $254 a month. These cuts disproportionately hit low-income and minority communities, potentially widening inequality. Wealth skew. Critics, including Democrats and fiscal watchdogs, call the bill a reverse Robin Hood. The top 1% could gain $70,000 annually from tax breaks, while the bottom 10% see their incomes drop by 4%. The state and local tax deduction, raised to $40,000, overwhelmingly benefits wealthy households in high-tax states. The bill's fiscal impact has sparked a firestorm. Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating, citing rising debt concerns, and bond yields are climbing above 5%, signaling investor unease. A debt crisis isn't imminent, but economists warn that piling on $36 trillion in existing debt could limit Congress's ability to respond to future crises, like another pandemic. So, who comes out on top and who gets left behind? Let's break it down. Winners: small businesses. The permanent 23% small business deduction and 100% expensing for manufacturing could create jobs and spur investment. Wealthy taxpayers. The top 1% get massive tax breaks, especially from the SALT deduction and estate tax cuts. Border security advocates. The $150 billion for immigration enforcement is a win for Trump's base. Special interests. The NRA cheers the silencer tax cut, and farmers like the estate tax exemptions. Losers. Low-income families. Medicaid and SNAP cuts could leave millions without healthcare or food aid. Green energy sector. Repealing Biden-era clean energy credits hurts companies like Tesla. Future generations. A $2.4 to $5 trillion debt increase means higher interest rates and less fiscal flexibility down the road. Middle class in high-tax states. The state and local tax deduction helps, but not as much as hoped, with some pushing for a $62,000 cap. The bill's regressive nature, favoring the wealthy while cutting safety nets, has Democrats crying foul, calling it a betrayal of the middle class. The bill's fate now lies in the Senate, where debates over deeper cuts versus preserving social programs are heating up. Fiscal hawks like Rand Paul want more savings, while moderates like Josh Hawley warn against gutting Medicaid. Any changes must pass the House again, where it barely squeaked through. Trump wants it on his desk by July 4th, but time's tight and the Senate's divided. Why should you care? This bill could reshape your wallet, your job, and your future. If it delivers growth, we might see a booming economy. But if the deficit spikes, higher interest rates could hit your mortgage, retirement savings, or college fund. And for millions, losing healthcare or food aid is a real risk. The stakes are huge. America's fiscal health hangs in the balance. So, is the one big beautiful bill a ticket to prosperity or a debt bomb waiting to explode? What do you think? Will this bill make America great again, or is it a step toward fiscal chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to Intrig Knowledge for more deep dives into the issues shaping our world. Until next time, keep questioning and keep exploring.